Hi, welcome back to Repair Lawnmowers for Profit. In this video I've just dragged all these out just to have a quick update. I'm going to have a look at this. I've just picked up this Mountfield SP470, one of my particular favourites, but this Tecumseh is now sold for £35. That's a £5 profit. It's been an absolute nightmare. If you've not seen the video, the really long repair video on that one, I've done a service video. The link is in the top right hand corner of your screen right now, and there's also a link in the description, but that's done and sold for a £5. So that was a bit of a disaster for me. But I managed to film a video and help a few people out with that. And I've written an article on the website as well, all about servicing Tecumseh. So take a look at Repair Lawnmowers for Profit for all these articles on all these mowers. There's this one here, I've just picked this one up as well, not even cleaned it off yet. This has got a Briggs and Stratton 450E, so I might fire that up in a minute. But what I want to look at today is I've just been out this morning, that's my own Massport. What I've been out for this morning is just to pick this Mountfield up. So let's take a look at this and let's see if we can get it running. Obviously this air filter box is on the wrong way around, so something's going on in there. The guy that sold me didn't even attempt to start it up. He just said there was some springs missing, which will be the governor springs. So I remember when I tied it up the other day, in my parts tray somewhere, moved them, look. Oh no. I have some governor springs. Anyway, I must have put them in one of these tubs. I'll find them in a minute. But I've got some governor springs, so I'll wheel these other ones out of the way, and we'll just have a look at servicing this SP470. Just before I do that, I'll just fire this Qualcast 450E up. This is just a push mower. This paid £40 for that, but it's got to be worth more than that. It looks like it's in really good condition. I've not started either of these up yet, this SP470 or this Qualcast. This is exactly the same lawnmower that I started repairing lawnmowers for profit on. This was my original lawnmower when I bought my house, probably about 15 years ago. And the problem I had with it was after a couple of years, well, the first thing that went wrong was the self-drive stopped working, because I had actually failed to tighten the cable up. I didn't realise you could alter it, so I altered that. And that sorted that out, and then it was revving up and down, and I learnt to do these diaphragm and gaskets on these carbs probably about, I don't know, 12-13 years ago, when I found out this exact lawnmower model wasn't running right. And that's what kind of carried me on to repairing lawnmowers for profit. So I want to start this Qualcast up with this Briggs engine. This is a newer style one. This still has a primer bulb on the side, if you can just see there. Still has a primer bulb on the side. It has a plastic car, but it doesn't have a diaphragm and gasket. I'm quite keen on these, which is why I've kept hold of this 500 as well. That's a 500E, and these are 450E. These tend to be the newer style Briggs ones, so let's just start that one up. I say I've not tried any of these yet. Just check the blades on this one, alright, but it's fine. So let's see if there's some fuel in that. There's only a little bit of fuel in it. I'll prime it and see if it starts anyway. One thing I don't like is you have to prime it around that side and then walk around this side. The older style Briggs ones, you don't have to do that. It's only a minor point, but it's quite annoying. Yeah, they broke me hand. That don't feel too good. I hate it when that happens. Let's try that again. Apart from it nearly ripping my arm off, it did actually start. There's not a lot of fuel in that, and it's revving up and down a bit, so it probably just wants a good service. Looks quite dirty around near the carb, where the carb is as well, and it's kind of vibrating a lot, so I might have a look at the keyway on that and make sure that that's not the problem. So that'll be coming up in a future video. So for now, let's take a look at this this one here. So I'll take you through the process that I would always do when I pick a lawnmower up. The first thing I want to do is I want to just make sure that the blade looks like it's on okay. It's tight at least. So tip it up with the carb side up, so that's on. Make sure there's some fuel in. That's what I'm talking about, the primer bulbs on the same size as the pull cord. I wish the Briggs was the other way around, but it's a minor thing, you know. There's any fuel in that? Yeah, there's a little bit of fuel in it. So let's just take this air filter box off and just see what's happening. I'm not sure there's any springs on here at all, to be honest with you. Yeah, before I start that, I'm actually going to take that off, because it's not going to run if there's no springs on it, is it? I better remember to turn this back on and that. So my name will be mud. Right. Anyway, let's take this off here. Yeah, I remember this years ago, taking this off here thinking, well, why don't this run properly? Couldn't believe it, and I did what everybody else has done with these that I pick up. I just messed with the springs and tried to even it out and tried to hold them in the right position. If you just started doing this, you probably notice on here this air filter box is the wrong way around. Now if you watch my really early videos, like the first 5 or 6 parts, I actually did this, but it's one of the telltale signs that someone's had a play about, because this box should be facing the other way with this triangular point actually pointing backwards. So when I finish making a mess of getting this screw out like that, we'll take a look under here and see if there's any springs at all. So let's have a look here. Yeah, there's only there's one linkage. There's no governor springs at all on here. There should be a spring there and a spring there, which I'm going to put on, and then we'll try this lawnmower, see if it's priming alright. Yeah, primer looks okay, so I know the carb's not too plugged up. See it jump across. That's another good thing I like about these mowers. And compared to that Tecumseh there, which took me about half an hour, 40 minutes to strip down, if you undo this bolt here and this bolt here, you can remove the whole petrol tank and carburetor. Once you've taken that linkage out there, just unhook that from the top, and this whole thing comes off. That took me 40 minutes on that Tecumseh, and this is why I always recommend starting with this type of lawnmower. So I'm going to take this cover off here. This is all like a hex screw in the top of it, so I'm going to take that off. And another sign that someone's been in here is this sticker should cover this screw, and when it doesn't, you know someone's been in. And sometimes as well this back one's missing. They're both the same, so to take this cover off, I'm going to find them governor springs. I'm going to put the springs on and see how it runs. I've just undone that one there. I'm just going to undo this one here as well. I'm going to leave them in position so when I take this off it all stays together, hopefully. So it's just to cover this, all you've got to do is lift it off over there. Make sure you don't lose your parts. Just lost the end of my screwdriver there, that'll be fine for a minute. And now you can see, you can get in here, you can actually see everything you need to see. Yeah, and this governor, obviously that's just waving about. That actually balances itself. It's supposed to set itself with the actual air that flows around this flywheel. So I'm going to get some governor springs, I'm going to show you how to put them on. Right, found them. These look like new ones actually. If you ever break a lawnmower down for bits and you're just going to scrap it, whatever you do, take these springs off. You can find these springs and the genuine diaphragm and gaskets that I use on the website at repairlawnmowersforprofit.com. The proper diaphragm and gaskets that go on here, don't buy the cheap aftermarket ones off eBay anymore, because even Martin Butler did a video on them. I think it was on his Retro Restore or Retro Hacks channel, and I think it lasted about 30 seconds. Just get the genuine Briggs one, they're not much more. As I say, if you look at the recommended parts section at my website, Repair Lawnmowers for Profit, you'll find them there. So I need to just put these governor springs on. So the long one across here and the short one just sits across at the back. And this tab, people bend this tab to make it run a bit faster, so I'm just going to get my thumb and bend that back a little bit just so it's in the centre, and then I'm going to fit these springs. So you just need to start by taking this longer spring, you see the hoop at the end, just push it through there, push it through that one there, just pull it through, that's that side, and then you do exactly the same with this side. Just put it on and pull it through, and all you've got to do now is just attach this little one onto this tab that I bent out of the way, and this longer one onto this section here where there's actually a little cutout. That's all you need to do. So I'll just put this little one on here, just put that round there, like that. Just have a look where the hole is there. Just a little bit fiddly to do, and that's through, you can see there. And this one's a little bit more awkward. I might actually get a flat edge and just take this spring here, as I can do it with my nail. Just push that through there. You can see the idea, you just get it, make it open up a little bit and slide it on. It's just a little bit fiddly, it just takes a few minutes sometimes just to hook this on here like that. And if you get it on and hook it over like that as you actually put it on, you can actually hook it over. So you can see there that everything sort of balances about and pulls back to where it should. Just bend that tab forward a little bit more like that. You can see here how this old governor all springs back, and everything sort of works in like a tug of war type manner, I like to describe it. So everything's pulling against each other. So that's going to run. I don't see, put this spark plug back on, I don't see why, if I put some fuel in here, why this won't run. Everything looks alright, the blade's alright underneath, it's getting fuel to it, the plug looks relatively new. So let's just try it. We'll just take this cover off and we'll try this lawnmower. And the great thing about doing all this on these mowers is I haven't even had to really take anything off, apart from this part here. That's it. I've got fuel, got a spark. I've just unhooked this from there so I can take this actual cover off, and I'm going to start this up. And I think this is going to run alright, to be honest with you. Just noticed there that the exhaust, these always break, by the way, where the exhaust attaches. These always break in here. They're really short. It's only a short thread. Be really careful if you're taking them back up. But this is a Briggs and Stratton engine. Just a standard Briggs engine is this. I'm not even sure if it is a 35 Classic, but it's very similar. All the parts are very similar. Slight differences on the shape of the intake manifold and things like that. Right, so make sure there's nothing underneath this. Just pull everything out of the way. Make sure there's nothing under it. I'm going to prime this. I'm going to try this. I don't really see me having too many problems with this lawnmower, if I'm honest. It's certainly got to be better than the last one I did. So let's try it. Yeah, the kill switch has been messed with at the back. That's got a repair on the cable. That's a shame. Let's try it. So that's going to need some work. Someone must have been in this carb and had a play about with it, but it starts and runs, which is always the main problem. So I'm going to take a look a bit more in depth at this moment. We'll strip this carb down and see what's going on there. Maybe even be a few parts missing off that as well. I've just noticed something on here. I'm surprised I didn't notice it before, to be honest with you. See this little part here? This triangular part here? This actually wants to go over here. That actually needs to, somehow what's got pushed around there. That actually wants to just go over the top of that, like that. You see that? Now it bounces around. You see now? It's like that. Wasn't like that before. I'm surprised I didn't notice that. But anyway, that's somehow got over the top. See that little plastic notch at the back there, just above my finger? That hits that there. That had actually gone over the top of there. So let's try it again. Plus it seemed a bit odd. I thought maybe there's some inlet gasket missing in one of the O-rings. Just try that again. Yeah. So if there was ever a great example of when a lawnmower needs a diaphragm and gasket replacing, you've just seen it there. When it revs up and down like that, that's I'm 99% sure that's a diaphragm and gasket issue. So we're going to replace that on the carb, we'll rebuild it and clean it all out, and then we'll retest it. Now here are the three tools. You only need 3 tools here to take a full carburetor off the petrol tank and actually remove this carb from the petrol tank. You need a 10mm socket or spanner, a 13mm socket, and then you need the screwdriver just for taking these screws out. But it's just so quick to do, and you just get in here like this, you back this off, take it all the way out like that, so you can get hold of it with your hand, and take this other one off while you're doing it, which is already kind of slack. Take these 2 parts off like that. So simple, so quick. Just pull this off evenly. Drop this linkage off at the back. This little linkage just pulls off. Take these 2 washers off here. Don't lose them. Black one goes in first, and then the white one. And then all you need to do, take a screwdriver and undo these 6 screws to take this carb off this petrol tank. I'm not going to do that yet because I want to clean the outside of this tank first, so I don't get any dirt back inside the carburetor when I do undo it. Right, so I've just cleaned that off a little bit. I'm going to take these 6 screws on here. I've probably seen loads of videos of people doing this on YouTube. I'm going to show you a few more tips that a lot of people might not tell you about these carbs as well, just in case it can get you out of a bit of trouble if you're having a job with this. It's really simple to do this. I must have done this. Must have done it well over 1,000 times now, this. And I've made so much money from this. I normally double my money on every lawnmower I get, if I'm honest with you. So otherwise I kind of don't bother buying it. You need to buy them cheap. Do the full service, list them, and even offer to deliver them on occasion. And you'll get good money for these. You've just got to put the extra effort in that other people aren't willing to do. And make a good job of it as well. So let's just do that. Let's take that off. The next thing I'm going to do, just repeal this old diaphragm and gasket off here, and I'll show you what happens with these. See this part here, they actually get wrinkled up. Once they wrinkle up like that, it doesn't pump the fuel through properly, and it doesn't obviously light properly with the spark. It doesn't ignite properly off the spark, and you don't get an even fuel flow. So you need to replace these diaphragm and gaskets. And as I've said before, you can get these via the Repair Lawnmowers for Profit website. So you need to replace the diaphragm and gasket. I'm going to clean out all this, and I get some cloth like this here. Well, I'll do it now. I'll just stick something in, get all this old fuel out. I'm going to use my air compressor just to blow all this out here as well. Be careful not to get any in your eyes if it comes back. You should empty the tank out first. I want to clean that off, and what I like to do, tip it upside down, get the screws off. And you see this tube here, this pickup tube often gets varnished on the end, so you get stale fuel in it. This actually, if you pull it hard enough, that actually comes off, and you can actually get in to clean that out. This little spring here, make sure you don't lose that. You see it's gone white inside this. Not sure what all that is. And if you use a little pick as well, you can actually remove this main jet. There's actually a little cut out there, and you can actually hook it out from that side. And in the back of here, there's actually like a little rubber washer that sits in the back. You've got to make sure that's sat in properly as well. We know the primer bulb works. You've seen then just all squirted out, so that's not clogged up. So let's just clean everything off. I'm going to blow this all out with some carb spray, and then I'm going to blow it all out again with the air compressor. You must make sure that these actual tips here are clean. Another little tip with these is make sure this little chamber's clean in here. See all the dirt down the bottom of there? Fuel actually sits in there, and you don't want anything actually sucking up. And if there's no filter on it as well, it's stopping all this go through the carb. So you must make sure all that's cleaned out. That's right, it's really handy to have an air compressor. If you haven't got an air compressor, get yourself a can of compressed air and it'll do the same thing. I used to just get a cotton bud and just pick around in there until it was actually really clean. The next thing I like to do is get some carb spray. Should do this over a tin really. I normally have a little tub, and I just spray it through this pickup tube here. Make sure it gets some through it, and clean all these ends of these pits off like this. Just leave that to soak, and then get in every single hole you can right down this main jet. As I said, you can take that out if you need to, or if you want to. Just get in and around everywhere you can, and make sure that this gets a good blow through, and everything can be sort of melted off that's been stuck on there for a long time. Just give it a really good clean around, and then we'll just blow it out with this air compressor. I might just take that little jet out of there as well. The thing is with these Briggs ones is the holes inside these are actually quite large, and these don't often block up. So I don't often like to take this out, as you can distort this plastic up the side of this little carb. So blow that through with the compressor. We'll fit a new diaphragm and gasket, and we'll put this back together and see how it runs. Just another little thing as well, if you're blowing this out with the air compressor, there's actually like a little ball bearing here, and I've actually seen that come out before. So it doesn't happen very often, but if you're just blowing through here like this, look, see how the primer bulb just gets bigger? What can happen sometimes is you can force this out of here, so make sure that stays in as well. Have a look for that, just in case you're really struggling, or if you're priming your lawnmower and it's got fuel coming out the carb, it could be because that part's missing. And this pickup tube here, if you look down here, what you want to be able to see from this end, I'm not sure if you can see it on the camera, is actually visible hole, so you can see straight through this. Make sure there's no blockages in. When you push this back in, this carburetor here, when you push it back in, you must make sure it clicks like that. If it don't click, it's not in right, so make sure it clicks back in. You have to press it quite hard. So I've got myself a new diaphragm and gasket here. I'm just going to fit that on now. The thinner part, this diaphragm actually goes on first there. Make sure everything's dry before you do this, by the way, and especially clean, but you know, it wants to be dry as well. You pop that back on, just line everything up. Actual gasket goes on top of the diaphragm like that. Make sure this little spring is still sat on this carburetor. I've just taken that off just while I cleaned it, so I'll pop that back on. Right, so I've just got that spring. Must remember to put this back on. I always take this spring off, by the way. Either falls off or I take it off, because when you're cleaning these things out, you can easily get lost. So once you've got your diaphragm and gasket lined up like that, the way I like to do this is I like to just hold the diaphragm and gasket and poke this pickup tube back through and drop it back down, just line everything up so you can see down all these holes. And what I like to do then is just lift it up slightly and make sure that this spring has gone down evenly and it's not all twisted underneath. Make sure the spring sits evenly and line everything up. Just look down from above and you can line everything up. and then you can just start putting these screws back in. I normally just put one in this corner here, like that, and just start it off a little bit, and then I'll go to this far corner over here and put one in. And then before taking anything up, I just have a really good look and make sure everything's nice and neat. You can see straight down into the threads of all these screw holes. So I'm just going to tighten this back up. And this little repair fixes 90% of Briggs and Stratton running problems on this type of engine. I can tell you that for certainty. I've read it on the internet, and I can tell you that's right because I've done so many. It really does. It fixes around, well, I would say 90%. Most of the problems you have with these is if the flywheel key is damaged because it's hit something underneath. I'm going to show you how to check the flywheel key in a minute as well. I've got a new impact tool as well, so it's really easy for me to just whip this actual flywheel off and have a quick look at this keyway. And I'm going to service this lawnmower properly anyway, so I'm going to take this whole recoil cover off anyway. So I'm going to bolt this back on and just see what it runs like first. And even if it runs alright, I'm going to take it back off, take this starter recoil off, check the flywheel key, and I'm going to clean all these cooling fins out and give this machine a really good service because I'm quite fond of these, if I'm honest. This little black retaining washer goes in first. Must make sure they're sat in evenly, like that. And this one here goes on like that, and everything comes in. I'm going to push this back on and hook it up, and we'll try this lawnmower. So the easiest way to refit one of these is make sure this plastic part's the right way around as it wasn't before. Hook this linkage through. This can all stay connected, these springs and this linkage, you don't need to take off. So it's basically one linkage, push it through the biggest hole, tilt it up, and then I'm going to push this back on really evenly so these washers slide on this inlet manifold like this. Make sure it all goes on nice and even. Ah, that's better. And that's pushed on nice and evenly. You don't want to take your time doing that. I'm going to put this bolt in here. I'll just tighten that one back up like that. And I'm going to put this little front one in as well. I'll tighten these back up and I'm going to try it. I've just this is really quite funny this, but I'm going to have to look back at previous videos, but I'm not actually sure if this actually about a year ago used to be my lawnmower, because I kind of recognise the person I bought it off, if I'm honest. And I'm going to look at the see the little yellow sticker here, because I noticed it's got a repair on the actual kill switch wire at the back, and it's the same, exactly the same repair that the one I had on. So I'm going to look, see this sticker here. Oh my goodness, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I've just bought my own lawnmower. Like, if anyone knows Only Fools and Horses, when Rodney buys some lawnmower engines, I think I might have bought my own lawnmower back. Oh my, oh dear. Anyway, if I can buy it back and resell it for more profit, then fair enough. I'm going to go back and I'll have a quick look on my phone and I'll see if it's the same one. But let's just try it. And I'll put a diaphragm and gasket on it. I'm sure that repair at the back is the same as it was. Oh dear. I hope it is, to be honest. And that's the difference it makes when you change a diaphragm and gasket on this Briggs and Stratton type engine. You can see straight away, ran up to speed perfectly, no revving up and down whatsoever. That's even with this air filter box missing off the top. So I'm happy that's running alright, but I'm going to show you a few more things. I'm going to do some more servicing on this video. So yeah, the truth's finally dawned on me that this did actually used to be my lawnmower. I think I've just looked back on some videos, but I can't believe this. I must admit, when I picked it up from this guy, he said, oh, I've had it about, I think he said he'd had it about 2 years, and it was fine, and then he'd lost some springs off it. And I'm thinking, alright. And the thing that confirms it is that this petrol tank here has got all this paint missing off, and I remember swapping it over to put a better looking one on another mower to sell it, and I just kept this one for myself. It's got an older plug in it as well. Yeah, the thing is, I remember this as well, because I didn't do this repair, but I remember this here. Oh no, yeah, I remember that repair was like that, and that kill switch only just moves. So it appears I've done a bit of a Rodney Trotter and bought my own lawnmower, but they were saying, I think they said they paid £90 for it. Well, I've just bought it for 35, so I bought it and sold it once for like 60 quid. I've kind of bought it and I'm going to sell it again and probably make another 60. So I'm not sure why he's taking the springs off it or what's happened, but this lawnmower runs perfectly well. So yeah, post something in the comment and call me rude names if you want, but I'm going to make some more profit out of it. And I'm going to take this actual recoil cover off here. I'm just looking at this pull cord actually. See how it's like white with little green notches on it. Oh, where are we going with this? Just a minute. This is my pull cord that I use. Oh dear, see how it's green and white? I'll probably replace that pull cord for myself at some point. And it's, I don't know if you can tell that from here, it's the same thing, green and white. What are the other ones like? Yeah, I've done that one as well. That's a new pull cord, of course, so that won't count. But that's a plain looking one, and that's a plain looking one, so there's a good chance that that's mine. And this, yeah, it's my old lawnmower. Anyway, I'm going to take this recoil cover off. This is so bad. I'm going to show you how to check the flywheel key while I'm here as well. Right, so the postman's just been and brought me some new toys. I bought this, I keep going on about this, I know I do, but it's really good, this Ryobi thing. It's really handy, so I've never had one before. But the problem with this is that it only came with one. I'll just take that off there. It only came with one of these adapters, so I only could get one size socket on the end, which was the larger size. So I've just got this in the post, so I can put smaller ones on it. So this just pushes in here. It's just like a quick release clip. You just pull it out and push these things in. Yeah, and I've got this set that adapts it, and I've just pulled that one out, and I can actually use this smaller 10mm one. You see, they've all got different sizes. These sockets are different sizes inside, so I was kind of limited. I was going to buy some more sockets. I thought, well, that seems a bit daft, so I just bought an adapter once I'd thought about it a bit longer. And the reason I want this is just for tiny little jobs like this, really. Just taking things like this off, it just saves me a bit of time. Take that off like that. Now, I know these aren't big things to undo, but I just get sick of taking them all off manually, you know. Everything takes a bit of time. I did one at a company the other day, and I had to take the actual head bolts off sort of 3 or 4 times, really, to get it running right. And it just saved me a load of hassle, really, and a load of time. So I'll just put them in my pocket. Get this recoil off here. Yeah, and this was just a lawnmower I just kept stripping bits off it, if I'm honest. I think even when I sold it, I just, you know, I kind of said it runs alright, but it's a bit tatty, whatever. I'm going to tidy this up. This is a great lawnmower. In fact, I might even keep it again, sell that Massport one. It's got a drive on this one. Sometimes I just sell them if I want to get some money to buy some more mowers. I just sell them. But what I want to show you on here is how to check this. Just pull that off. How to check this top flywheel key in here. Now, with this tool, I used it the other day, and it was just strong enough to take off this actual bolt here off this crankshaft. Now, the problem comes when you haven't got one of these. If you want to check the keyway, you can't actually get this bolt off with a normal socket because it just turns the blade underneath. The whole thing turns, so it won't undo. So you need to have enough power to zip it off. Either that or hold the blade underneath, which is an absolute pain to do, and you get fuel and oil everywhere if you don't drain it out. But what I want to do again, it's only the second time I've done it, is I want to see if this little this Ryobi is powerful enough to unzip this top bolt off this crankshaft here, because I've got an electric one, a Clark one, and I'd have to plug it in to do it. I just want to try it without it. So let's go and get a socket. Let's see if we can zip that off there. It's probably one of these here. Look, these are actual impact sockets. Should really use proper impact sockets with this. So I'll grab 3 of them. So if I don't, I'll bring the one that don't fit. Let's just try that. That's a bit small. Let's just put that on. Oh, that's too small as well. Can't believe I've not got one big enough in there. That must be fit, sure. Nope. I found a 5/16 here. You can see that's not an impact socket, it isn't ideal really, but just drop that out there. This is what I mean about changing these parts over. This actually has a wider fitting in there, so I can just swap this over. Just pull this out, all you do is pull it out and then just push that in. I can't do it with one hand. But what I want to try again, make sure this spark plug lead is removed, by the way, if you're doing this, because you don't want to get your feet under here, especially if this height's lifted right up. So why you must remove it before you do any repairs, because you just never know what you're going to get into. So let's try this and see if it's powerful enough to unzip this. You see that? That could take you hours without one of those. Remove that cup. Just going to look at this flywheel here. This is how you just check this top flywheel key. Here, you don't need to take all this off here. This keyway sets the timing. So if you've got a lawnmower that's vibrating and revving up and down and doing all sorts, and you want to check the keyway, you see how that neatly sits in this actual flywheel here. Everything's nice and square. If it's slightly offset, this will have a little notch in it, and this actual flywheel will have like moved around a little bit off this keyway, and this will be out of shape. If you have one of those, it has a massive knock-on effect from where these magnets hit this ignition coil here, and it'll spark at the wrong time, and it either will run really bad if it runs at all, or it, you know, won't run. So that's how you check the flywheel key. If you need to get that off, you can get a flywheel puller and just put it in here. I think they've already got threads in. Some of them are maybe here on the outside. I can't remember exactly. What a lot of people do is just get a rubber mallet and bang it up from underneath, which I'm not supposed to tell you to do because you could break the flywheel, but occasionally I've done that before and got through it. But usually I just get a flywheel puller. It actually says to use a puller in here. You can pull this off, slide a new keyway in and put this flywheel back on. So if you're wondering how to check the flywheel key for the timing on your petrol lawnmower, that's how you do it, just by removing that. As I've said, it's a lot easier with one of these tools. Another little tip: if you're trying to get this flywheel off, don't ever hit the top of this crankshaft. What you'll do then is you'll damage these threads, and if these threads are damaged, this crankshaft runs right through the engine. And unless you're really experienced in mechanics, you might as well take this to your local tip, once you've removed all these springs, of course. So I'm going to put all that back on. Finished with doing that. It's just you see, that's like a 10-second thing for me now to check that before I do anything else in it. I know that's right, and having that tool just makes it a lot easier for me. And that's everything back together. What I've decided to do with this isn't going to take me too long to repair. In fact, it's already running alright, so it just wants a bit of work doing. What I'm going to do is I'm going to strip down this engine. I'm just going to go through a few things that I can kind of share with you that I've learnt from messing about with these and doing these over the last sort of 10 years. But really, if I'm honest, I just want to have a go with this new tool I've got. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to unbolt this tank, and I'm going to take it all off again. I'm going to take this control arm off, I'm going to take the head gasket off and this spark plug out. I'm going to show you this inlet manifold here, and take this ignition coil off and this governor flap, and I'm going to show you how to put it all back together again. While I'm doing this, I'm just going to show a few things that have caused me problems over the years that you might not know. If you've done the diaphragm and gasket and it still doesn't run right and you want to know a little bit more, this video could help you out. So let's just make sure this is removed. Always make sure. And we'll just undo this and take this tank off again. Pull this off. Move this spacer. It's just a spacer, that. Don't lose this part inside here. Pull that off and unhook it. That's out the way. I'm going to clean all these cooling fins. If you've got a lawnmower, these cooling fins are covered in grass and oil, and it's all stuck to it, and it starts and runs and dies after a minute. It's because it's overheating and it's cutting out. So clean the cooling fins off. And just take this off here. See how these sometimes come off and sometimes don't. Don't want to lose these. They want to go back in the back of that carburetor there. But I'm going to take this control arm off here, and I'm going to take this head off this lawnmower as well. So let's just have a go with this. This is something I didn't really always want to do before, so it took me a while just with the socket. Not sure why that's a different size, to be honest, but it's just got enough power, this, to do the job. Not sure what's happened with that one, but I'll have to get another socket on that before I round it off. But that's all of those out, and I can get this head off. Yes, I just had to swap that. I went from a ½ inch, got it off. I just swapped this little adapter over I've just got from This other one was just like a 13mm socket. Anyway, it's come off. I'll replace that bolt, so it's starting to look a bit rounded off. But from here, I can get all these bolts out, and this control arm will just drop off. This whole thing just comes off. You see how much carbon buildup there is on the inside of that? I can now clean all that off, and I can clean it all off from around these valves. If I turn the flywheel here at the top, I can bring this piston up to the top dead centre there and stop any dirt travelling down there, and I can clean all that off. I can clean this control arm off. And I want to show you something in here as well. There are different sizes of inlet manifold on these different Briggs engines. You see this part, this tube that runs from here, this is where the carburetor slides on here. Well, this runs underneath the ignition coil here. And this here has a gasket on underneath, and sometimes these have little cracks and splits in them. Been chatting online with a chap who has his own garden machinery business up in Perth in Scotland, and he said he's done some of these on the SV150s where the manifold's got a slight crack in it, and I've seen them where the gasket has actually gone under here. There is actually a gasket. In fact, we'll take it all off and I'll show you exactly what I mean. But there are, if you're going to buy a gasket or a manifold, check the shape of these. Sometimes they're round, sometimes they're circular. I've actually linked on the website under the recommended parts store to both types of these, but before you replace it, you want to take it and have a look and make sure that it's the right shape before you order the wrong one. So I'll remove this governor flap. This part's a governor flap. I'm just going to explain and kind of name a lot of these parts for people who just don't know. This governor flap connects up here with these governor springs, and this part under here is the ignition coil that gets your spark down this wire to your spark plug. So I'll just undo that. I'm going to take this off. I'm taking a few things off this, and I'll just have a good look round. And if anyone's been in the garden taking this whole thing apart, it might just help them get it all back together. So that whole thing comes off. This control arm with the spring all comes off separate like that. And then this ignition coil, you can see it's just jumping back there. It's actually holding onto these magnets. So turn this flywheel to a position where it's not got hold of it. Pull this screw out of here, or this bolt should I say, and we can lift this ignition coil off out of the way. I'm just going to take that out of there because underneath it I need to turn it over and disconnect this kill switch wire. See this wire here on the back? Just pull that off there. And that's the way, that's the ignition coil off. I've never had an ignition coil fail on one of these yet. That wants a really good clean up, so I've taken that off. I'll just put these bolts back through here so I don't lose anything. Put that there. The other bolt is on this governor flap there. All the head bolts. And this is the main cause of no spark on a lawnmower. It runs from this kill switch, which is needs a wire replacing. It runs right round here, right round this flywheel to the front, and what happens is the kill switch wire can get trapped. When you put this recoil cover back on here, this kill switch wire gets trapped underneath it, and it can either have a break in it or it can just break apart completely and just be split. So it goes right under here. This breather goes to the exhaust. If you wanted to take that off, you can usually just twist it. Got a bit of oil on my hand so I can't really do it, but that just twists and it should come off. Maybe it's reverse thread, I can't remember. Anyway, it just comes off. So let me see if I can just get a hand on that. Yeah, this part just unthreads. I'm just trying to work out the right way to do it, to be honest with you. But what happens when you tip a lawnmower that's full of oil is that it goes down this pipe and it goes in here, into this chamber where the valves are actually seated at the back, where the valve springs are, and it goes into the exhaust. And if you get massive white smoke problems, it's because the oil's travelled down here when you've tipped it up into this exhaust and it has to burn it off. Yeah, this is threaded. I've never actually had to take that off before. It's got a thread on the other end. You just take that off like that. I just put a screwdriver at the end of it just to get a bit more of a turn on it. And then it runs, this kill switch wire runs underneath that. So what I'm going to take off next is this inlet manifold here. I'm going to show you the gasket. Now don't be surprised if you get in one of these lawnmowers and you see this hole here at the back and you think it's like blown a hole in it. That's actually supposed to be there. It just looks a bit odd. Just every time I see it I think, oh yeah, and then I remember that I always see it. It's supposed to be there. So there's that. So you remember this kill switch wire, it runs under this breather and then over the top of this inlet manifold, around the side and underneath the ignition coil. I'll take these parts out of here. Sometimes this gasket's bad on here. If you tried everything else, it's still revving up and down. Yeah, you can actually see it's sat there. There's quite a lot of dirt around this, but if you look at that edge there, you can actually see this actual gasket sat on there. And I've seen them come up, and they're I think they do like a kind of paper one instead of a rubber one. From time to time, these they come off with this manifold and they get put back on without it. And you can see these the valves are actually in here. You can see everything turns, and these valves should open and close. Another thing to check if you're really struggling with the lawnmower, these valves actually sit in these valve guides, and sometimes the guides pop out. Just one thing to note, I've had that on a Honda one before, and if you try and to get it running again, and you've tried everything else, that's the last resort, but I have seen that occasionally happen. So to unbolt the exhaust, there's like metal tabs around here down the side. You could use a flat edge really screwdriver. You just bend these tabs out of the way, and then all you've got to do is just unbolt it and take this exhaust off. I'll just take this exhaust off. Once you bend them tabs out of the way, just take these parts out. That's actually got variable speed on, by the way. See, you can basically run it whatever speed you want. A lot of the cheaper ones haven't. In fact, I'll put a link to that in the description of the video. It's got variable speed. It's 250 Nm, which I think is Newton meters of power, and the other ones I've looked at were either 80 or 90 and didn't have variable speed for around the same price. And it comes with a battery as well. A lot of them come bare, they call them bare without batteries. So, but I found that really good for stuff like that. Anyway, I'll link to that in the description in case anyone's looking for it. It's been pretty good. I've used it over the last week. It's been really good. Next thing I want to do is I'm going to open the trapdoor, what I like to call the trapdoor. I'll show you where these actual valves move about. And this is where you're going if you need to, or you want to adjust or change over these valves. They're not easy to adjust on these. All you can do really is grind them in again, put some new valve stems in and get a correct clearance. But in all honesty, nobody really does that on these engines. The flathead engines of these, and they're kind of just designed to be hard wearing and just last a long time really. So I'll show you in here anyway, and you can actually get a Briggs and Stratton tool that does a compression tool that compresses the springs on these. You see there's a little bit of oil dropping out. This actual, what I call a trapdoor, drops out. I'll move that up and out of the way. You can see when you turn the flywheel here, this is where the springs and the valves all move. You can make sure everything's moving properly. If you want to take them off, you get this compression tool and you put it at each side and you nip the springs together and pull it, and it comes off this retaining, like a retaining clip comes off, and from there you can pull these valves out the front of this engine. So that's what's in there, just in case you were wondering. This little part here where the recoil sits on again, you can just unclip this if you wish. You can just unclip this wire from under here, just pull it off like that. You can just take this whole thing off. See if I can get that out of there. You can take that off and out of the way. Keep the clip on the wire so you don't lose it, and that's another thing out the way. And then if you were going to do this and you have the right tools, it'll only take you 10 minutes. You can get in and clean absolutely everything out of these cooling fins. So I think what I'm going to do next is I'm going to take this flywheel off as well. I'm going to give this a really good clean up now I've got everything off. So I've just unzipped that again and taken it off. The next thing I'm going to do is just remove this flywheel. If I'm honest, I've just tapped that up from underneath using a rubber mallet, and it's just popped up there. Shouldn't really do that, to be honest. I shouldn't really say, but you see the brake here, that kind of holds the flywheel in your way a little bit. So if I'm to hold that like that, remove it, you see how this flywheel moves? If I do that, I'm just going to lift this flywheel off. So if you can't get it off, probably because this brake's got hold of it. There, I've just released that and lifted it. I just wanted to lift it off and actually film it as well. So that's the flywheel out of the way. Keyway's fallen out. See this little keyway here? You don't want to lose that. Make absolutely sure there's no chips in that. It's a bit dirty, that one, but there's no marks in it. If there's any discrepancy with it and you're not sure, just replace that. So now you can see we've stripped all these parts off this mower. We're getting right down to it here. I can clean all this off, cover these holes up as well, and I can clean all this off, get some degreaser and go around it all and make it all clean and tidy. And I'm going to rebuild all these parts and we'll put it all back together. And I wish I had a video like this to watch when I was starting, to be honest with you, and I would have known so much more. So if you can do this and you've got a few basic tools, there's nothing at all to stop you getting started repairing these lawnmowers for profit. So I've just spent 5 or 10 minutes cleaning all these parts off. I just got a little tub and just cleaned them off with a brush. Didn't use anything else. I do have a parts washer somewhere. I think I've actually lent someone at the minute. I couldn't find it, but I never really used it much, if I'm honest, for these little bits, but imagine what all these would sell for spares. If you just sell these separately, the air filter box and this intake manifold and everything. You know, the price of these aren't cheap, these ignition coils, I think they're around £25. But to put these on eBay and just sell it for parts. So there's profit to be made whether you want to repair them or you just want to strip these down and sell them for profit. So I've just cleaned this off as well. It's not 100% perfect, but it's nice and clean and tidy. You can see here all these cooling fins have been cleaned off. So I think what I'll do now is I'm going to just bolt all this back together and I'll show you how to do it. So let's start putting a few of these parts back on here. I'm just going to start putting this intake manifold back on first of all. That's just going to sit on here with these two screws through it here. Just tighten them finger tight. Don't forget the kill switch wire went over here and under the breather pipe. So let's see if I can find the right tools. Pop that on, make sure it's down even. I'll just say again, I know I mentioned it earlier, if you're buying a replacement one of these, they are different shapes and sizes. I think there's 2 or 3 different ones, so you want to take it off, check the actual shape of the end of it, make sure you get the right one. Some of them are circular and some of them are like a, oh no, it's not a hexagon, but whatever shape that is, that's what shape they are. I'll put this breather back on here. You can see here, in fact I'll do the ignition coil wire first, because the ignition coil wire here just needs to come round here. I'll just place that in position, and that was actually underneath there, so I'll put that there first and then we'll screw this pipe back in. So the next thing I'm going to do, just put this ignition coil back on here. You see, you want to connect this up first underneath here. Just give that a little bit of a spray up with some WD as well. Just clean this connection in here a little bit. This actually hooks on underneath, and you can just drop that on there. Just move that back across. Actually, I've got that little plastic clip here. That wants to be at the other side. That's my mistake. That wants to go back here. I'll just pop that there for now. And I'm going to press this onto this little connector under here, and then push this wire into a nice neat place out the way. I'm just going to leave that there for a minute, and I'm going to put the governor flap right back across it, and I'm also going to put this other screw as well. So this governor flap goes at this side, and this has got a slightly different screw. It's got like a shorter thread. Just put that in there. That one goes in that side. You don't have to worry about setting this just yet until the flywheel's back on. I'll put that one in. I'll grab that. I'll just put that lightly into there. Don't need to worry about tightening any of these up, just get them in position so they're somewhere near, like that. Everything's moving nice and neatly. So next I'm just going to refit this little trapdoor, as I like to call it. Find where that goes, and that's like that. That just sits on there, like that. It's just a bit easier if you clean some of these parts off. Saves you getting in such a mess, it just keeps everything a little bit clean and tidy. It's not perfect, but it's okay. It's certainly a lot better than it was. It was a bit of a mess. I must admit, the person I bought it off, after they bought it off me, had a lot of grass. It was a massive garden, so I think it was a couple of years ago actually I sold them this, so it's not been too bad I suppose, but it just wants a bit of a clean and tidy up. Put this butt exhaust back on. I can just bolt back on there like that. Just line that up there. Start these two here. I'm going to sort this exhaust guard out afterwards as well. Just wanted to show this. I actually made a mistake after I put the exhaust on. I wanted to refit this part here, and it actually bolts through where this the little trapdoor is. So I wanted to put that back on, but this is the whole reason I bought this tool. I can just zip these parts on and off. If I make a mistake, it's only a few seconds really, so I can unbolt everything and bolt it all back together. So I've taken that off. That goes through there, and then this one connects when you put the starter recoil back on. So I've got that one back through there. I'm going to bolt this exhaust back on. So that's back on now. I just want to show you this little clip. That little clip just hooks in underneath here, and then the wire just hooks in. It's really important this, because this wire does get broken a lot. Make sure this is securely fastened around here when you put this flywheel back on, and it ain't going to get trapped by this starter recoil when you put it on. Make sure everything's nice and tidy. It goes round here underneath the brake, goes round the back of this screw hole into the little clip, and then under this breather pipe, and then over the top, well, or round, or over the top if you like, of this actual inlet here and into this ignition coil. And make sure you connect the wire up as well before you tighten everything back up, because you can't really get in very easy to connect it up afterwards. Next thing I'm going to do is drop this flywheel back on. I've got the keyway here. I can't remember if I mentioned it on this video that I've been filming another one before, but if you're trying to get the flywheel off, never ever hit this crankshaft on the top, because you'll ruin these threads, and that'll be the end of that. So just drop the keyway back in, slide it down, get this flywheel here. And what I've done here, this brake here, this is a braking mechanism. I've just tied that there because that swings it out the way. Don't ever leave it tied up like that. Make sure you undo it again. But just to get this on here, it moves the brake out the way. So we'll line everything up on top here. You can see, I'll drop this on here. But what I did is I dropped it in from the top with the keyway in position and dropped it back onto the crankshaft. Make sure it's all lined up just like that. If it looks any different, just like that, sounds like Tommy Cooper. If it looks any different, then be sure to replace that as well. Let's put this cup back on. Get this this cup here, and we'll bolt all this back on. You can see really, to strip one of these down compared to that Tecumseh I've just done on that last video, it's really not much of a job. And I ain't got really many specialist tools apart from this impact to take this bolt off. So I'm going to tighten that back up, and then we'll put a few more parts back on. So before I can put this control arm on, I have to put the head back on. So I've got all these bolts. I'm going to push all the bolts through all the holes, line everything up, and I'm just going to place it all around here. I'm going to get a bit of wire wool and just clean all this off around here first, and then we'll just put that back on. Tip before I start that I've just remembered as well, I always do this, is these three holes at the top here. This goes this way around. What I normally do is bolt it all on with all the bolts, then I remind myself after, I remember that the bolt's supposed to go through the control arm and here. So disregard what I just said. This actually all goes together in one go. Let me show you what I mean. These have to go through here, this control arm with it first. So line them all up with the control arm on, and then push the whole thing back on. So like that, you want to get everything assembled together with the control arm on, push all these through. I've just replaced this one of the bolts that I didn't like either. I think I just rounded it off, if I'm honest, so I've replaced that one. I've actually got a little box of loads of them from just over the years I've done it. So I'm just going to lift that back on when I clean this head off. And I've cleaned the carbon off the back of this as well. I'm going to clean that off, and I'm just going to bolt all this back on. So just get these finger tight like I've done here. Make sure you've started them all before you go for it with the impact, and I'm just going to bolt them all back on. I'm just going to do them pretty loosely to begin with. I should really go in a cross pattern. That's why I wanted a variable speed one as well, you see. So I've got the option with it not to actually, you know, just really break into anything. So I'm going to do that like that, and I'm actually going to finish these off with an actual this wrench here. I'm just going to tighten them up with that to make sure they are tight. So next, before I forget, I'm going to actually just set this ignition coil. What happens when you turn this, as you can see, and if you can tell there, the ignition coil gets grabbed by the magnets, so you need to turn it to a part where there aren't any magnets, and just get yourself a bit of card about the thickness of a playing card or an old greetings card. This is actually from my jogging bottoms from Primark, which were a £5. My mum made me buy them. Anyway, so slide that in there, and then if you turn it again, the magnets will still grab the actual coil. Hopefully. This just grabs it, and it'll hold it all in place, you see, so you can just nip this back up. Like there. You see how the magnets grabbed it? You can hear it. You just hear it grab it, and then you just grab your tool. Keep everything nice and even at the back. I always just put my thumb on the back like that. Make sure everything's kind of level. Tighten this up. One little tip with this governor one as well. This governor flap one is, on some mowers, if you get the wrong bolt or anything like that, this governor flap won't move, and your lawnmower either won't run or it'll run full speed. Then all you need to do is just turn this flywheel, pull the card out, and then you've got an even gap between this ignition coil and this flywheel, and that's all you need to do to set this coil. There's no other tricks for doing that at all. It's just as straightforward as that. turn it round to the magnet, put a bit of card in the gap, set it by tightening it up and turn it back again. Put that hook back in there while I'm there as well. So if I've got everything in the right order, the next thing I need to just do is just rebolt this petrol tank back on. So I'll do exactly what I did before. I'm going to just show you this as well. Again, put this black washer in here. That's like an O-ring if you like. This is like an inlet seal. This just clips in here as well. You'd be doing me a huge favour, by the way, and I know I keep going on about the website, but I've written a massive article called how to make money selling lawnmowers. If you actually type how to make money selling lawnmowers in on Google, I think I'm on the first page, I'm about the fourth one down. If you could go to that article, you'd be doing me an absolutely huge favour and just have a look through there, and there's all sorts of advice on how to do this, like a really detailed thing. So if you take how to make money selling lawnmowers and look for repair lawnmowers for profit and open that article, you'd be doing me a massive favour. So that's enough of that. This little hole here, that's where this linkage wants to go in. We'll pop that in there. I'm going to push this back on this inlet manifold here. This little breather wants to go on here as well. We'll just push that through. That all slides on nicely. And we've got the spacer. Kevin Spacer. I don't know if we're allowed to talk about him anyway. I don't think he's done anything wrong, so he's been proven, has he? But anyway, there's Kevin Spacer. He's gone in there. I'm going to get this bolt. Put that through Kevin there like that. I don't ever think I've actually even seen a film with Kevin Spacey ever in my whole life. Anyway, that's that. That goes back in there. Before you tighten that up, you want to put this little one at the front. That keeps everything nice and level. Before you tighten everything up, you want to make sure all this springs around. There's actually a governor spring that's come off there. I'll hook that back on again in a minute. I've actually got this right. Just pull that up there. So this lines up here where you're going to put the recoil cover back on. I'll just tighten that up there. And that's everything back together. I'm going to hook this spring back on here. You don't need to see that, I've shown you how to do it. And I'm going to make sure everything moves freely. I've got that little spring back on and all this. See how all this governor arm moves and all these springs move kind of in conjunction with each other. That's all you need. Make sure this little pipe's back on here and we're pretty much back together now. So I've just pulled this starter recoil back on. I want to just show you this, make sure that's in this actual little notch here. And these screw holes are quite tight. There's one there, there's one at the back where this part is here. Just in there, you want to make sure it's lined up on one at the other side. So just get the three parts and put them in really loosely, just finger tight, and just turn them a couple of threads till you get everything lined up first. So I've got these parts in just loosely as you can see here, but before you fit this one, which is near this actual, where the dipstick goes for the oil, if you've got an exhaust guard, what you need to do is just remember to put it through this exhaust guard first, and then you bolt it all through together. So I'm going to do that now, and I'm going to fix this one that's at the front. It's actually got a part missing, so this exhaust guard's not loose. Just remember to push this through here before you actually tighten the other two up as well. Just remember as well, you can get a slightly different part here that's slightly wider. You see this bolt? Slightly wider. I found one of them in my tub and that actually holds this exhaust back on better. And now I've got to connect this up here. Now these normally snap off inside here. These normally actually snap off if the bolt snaps when you tighten it inside, but this one hasn't, so I'm going to find a bolt to put through there and hold this exhaust guard back on. So that's in now. It's got a little screw. It really should be a bolt, I suppose, but the screw goes in. It's only got a short thread, and if you overdo it, it will snap. So I'll leave that off for now. I'll put this air filter back on. Put this on, I've just cleaned this air filter off as well. We'll just drop that back in there. There should be a little gasket that sits around here, by the way, and that's not there either, but I'm going to put that back on. Get this screw here. Should have put it on my bench this long. I've been doing this knelt down all day. I shouldn't have done really. But once I start doing something, I kind of like to keep doing till I get it done. You know what I mean? You just start and you just don't really want to sort of quit till you've got it done. So let's put this back in here. So I've just reconnected the spark plug. That should always be the last thing that you do. And I've taken this cable tie. I've not cut it off yet. I've actually taken that off from this kill switch. You don't leave them on either. So let's prime this and let's try it. I mean, if everything's rebuilt, nothing's really changed, has it? So it's just cleaner. I know everything's clean and tidy, so let's just try it. that's fine, it starts and runs. It's actually running a bit too fast for my liking. That there's a little bit of oil burning off just where it's had the oil put in the wrong way just from moving it about and taking a little chamber off. So I'm just going to take the air filter off and I'm going to just slow this lawnmower down a little bit. Definitely running too fast is that. Maybe still want slowing down a little bit, but I can do that, and I'm going to put the air filter box back on. But we've stripped all this down, we've put it all back together just in a methodical order really, and just kept an eye on what we're doing. That's exactly how I do it every time I service one of these lawnmowers. I don't always go that in depth and take everything off, but when it's a real mess it's just easier sometimes to strip everything off, especially when you've got some tools to be able to do it with. So we've rebuilt that and it starts and runs fine anyway. So while this has been running, I've just got it a bit more even actually. Just messed about with them little springs a little bit, the tab anyway, not the springs. Got it running evenly. What I'm going to do is I'm going to change the oil. I'm going to tip this up again, which I don't like doing after I've serviced it. Should do it at the beginning. I'm going to tip it up and I'm going to service the underside. I'm going to clean this belt guard out as well. Sharpen the blade, but I'm not going to film all that. I've done that on loads of videos. This is just a basic video just to show you how to strip these down and how to rebuild these back up. So I'm going to do those repairs now. Won't take me too long to do. I just want to say thanks very much for watching. You would be doing me a huge favour if you could just type in how to make money selling lawnmowers on Google and read my article at Repair Lawnmowers for Profit. If you haven't already subscribed, be sure to do so. And in the top right hand corner of your screen now there'll be a card pop up and it'll have a playlist to all my Briggs and Stratton repair videos on there. So thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And just to everybody who has subscribed so far, I'm approaching 7,500 now. This thing's just flying, which is incredible. So thanks very much again and again. I honestly can't thank you enough. I'll see you next time.